Back on the SportsMax zone, on the 28th of March, regional boards will meet to select a new president and vice president for the next two-year term. Incumbent president of Cricket West Indies, Ricky Skerritt, and his deputy, Dr. Kishore Shallow, are being challenged by Ghana Cricket Board Secretary Sanasie and his running mate, Calvin Hope, president of vice president of the Barbados Cricket Association. On Wednesday, the 9th of March, Skerritt was on the SportsMax zone, highlighting his update 10-point cricket first plan. And in that interview, he said he was not surprised that a challenger had emerged.
The system has an allowance for challenging the incumbent and trying to bring betterment to the leadership, and that is a healthy thing. So I wasn't terribly surprised. The short of it is that I was not surprised coming from these two individuals who have spent the last 2 years being opposition in the parliament, so to speak. I've said that recently. I've said it before to them. I've said it to others. So it's no surprise that if you're in opposition in a parliament, then and you practically have a political party against the government, then when election time comes around, you're going to go and fight the election. So it's a welcome development in the sense of the democracy that it brings. But you know, it's so obvious that people spend too much time in a boardroom being negative, being resistant, being opposing, and then just want to get rid of you for reasons which are more personal and petty than cricket.
Yeah. That's Ricky Skerritt speaking on the SportsMax zone last Wednesday. We are joined now by Calvin Hope, aspirant for the post of Vice President of Cricket West Indies. Hope will be responding to some specific points made by Skerritt in last week's interview, plus advancing an argument as to why the Sanasie Hope ticket should get the nod on election day. Calvin Hope, welcome to the SportsMax zone. Great to have you on for the first time.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you, your colleagues, and to your audience.
Yeah, well, Calvin, we gather that you have some issues with some of the comments made by Ricky Skerritt when we interviewed him last week, not the least of which comments we just repeated a minute ago.
Yes, I do. You know, it's very unfortunate that Mr. Skerritt would have said those things. In the scope of a director's fiduciary duty, if a director sees something that decision-making that is unfavorable or not beneficial to the organization, if the director sees infringement of the corporate instruments of the organization, if the director sees scant respect shown to the members of the company, being the shareholders, and things like that are not going well, if you see conflict of interest, if you see the lack of transparency, shouldn't a director raise those issues? And a director as myself, sitting in my position as an attorney at law, and I don't profess to know more law than anybody else, but I think that is even more incumbent on me to point those things out to the board. And if one sees that as political, well, so be it. And I don't know that there is anybody else, any other director in the room that sat in Parliament apart from Mr. Skerritt.
Mr. Hope, to be fair to the president, in his pronouncements, he singled you out along with Sanasie as two dissenting voices in the boardroom. But judging from the presentation that you just gave, it would stand to reason, if what you're saying is as logical as it sounds, that you two wouldn't be the only ones speaking out against some of the things happening in the board meetings.
Well, other people have done that, and have had support from other directors, and privately, and in board meetings. And any director that says otherwise than what I have been raising every matter that I have raised were based on fact, were grounded in the legal instruments of the organization, where the things are, the rules are not being followed. And if the rules are not being followed, and I raise them, and there's a stubbornness to ignore, well, that is it. And fundamentally, that is why I am running, because the way things have been unfolding in the last 2 years, starting from the very beginning with the removal of the coaching staff, the selection panel, when it was touting about something about some gimmickry about cricket first. Cricket has always been first in the Caribbean. It's never been last. And if cricket was first, and you were touting that, I would think that if you just beaten one of the top teams in the world, that you would have been careful, been very careful in the decisions that you made or was driving at the time. And also, those decisions has cost the organization hugely, hugely.
You're pointing, Calvin, to contentious issues as far as you're concerned, dating back 2 years ago. Would you concede at the same time, though, that from the outside looking in, there appears coming out of CWI a lot more harmony in the body now than prior to Skerritt getting there, which the president would hold up as one of the successes of his term in, keeping things harmonious and keeping things positive. That's how it looks from the outside.
Well, deflection has many faces, and one could say anything, but there's a lot more. I mean, when you think in terms of not just what happened with the selection, but there are serious issues about transparency and conflict of interest in the way things are going. And they have been raised and ignored. And also there are issues about, if you take, for instance, the fitness regime that everybody been talking about and questions of transparency, that's been talked about across the region, right? And there are several other issues. I mean, if you think about the Guyana affair in relation to the elections, or if you connect the dots in terms of the dates and run them back to CWI elections, and I am willing, a matter of fact, I would use this medium to invite Mr. Skerritt and Mr. Shalom, Dr. Shalom, to debate myself and Mr. Sanasie on issues of transparency, right, in the last 2 years, and conflict of interest.
Hope, you mentioned, you gave us an example of lack of transparency. You also, in your first answer to Lance, you actually spoke about, directors and shareholders and whatnot being disrespected. Are you willing to give us an example of that?
Well, look, I will role play that. If I were the president of CWI, and I was invited by a minister of sport of any government to meet with in a shareholder's territory or anything to do with the shareholder, I would ask the minister kindly, tell him I'm willing to meet with you, but I would prefer to have the representatives of my shareholder present, right? If he refuses, well, at least I did that. But if I'm invited to appoint an ombudsman or to support the appointment of an ombudsman and to set an election for that shareholder, and I had already set elections for my organization where I am running, trying to retain my position, and my partner is trying to retain his position. I would have thought that you would have advised the board
Yeah.
that this is about to happen and get some advice.
Right.
I would not handpick people and go to that meeting and make a decision in the absence of the two people who are challenging me, because that raises some serious conflict of interest issues. And why the haste in setting an election in before CWI election, given all the circumstances that we were hearing in Guyana? Why the haste? And that is what what the incumbent should really be explaining. I certainly wouldn't do that. But, you know, I am not the one to judge their conduct. I would like you all to ask them that question. Dr. Shallow came out and said that he participated in the decision to hold the elections and to deal with the ombudsman. So that in itself, and if Mr. Sanasie and myself did not have an opportunity to either say, well, yes, we agree with setting in the elections, or not, or to at least have a comment. But we were denied that opportunity. But they were full-fledged leading the delegation. And that in itself, I mean, if people could condone that kind of operation, put it that way, I think if something like this had happened at the ICC, we would be screaming.
Calvin Hope, stick with us. We go to a commercial break. When we come back, we continue our discussion with Calvin Hope, who is a running mate of Anand Sanasie, challenging the presidency of the Cricket West Indies at the March 28 elections. We'll be back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this.
Back with us on the SportsMax Zone, the man bidding to become the next Vice President of Cricket West Indies, Calvin Hope, is with us now. He is an attorney at law of several years' experience, highly respected in the field, and he's hoping to make another mark as a cricket administrator, a former player of the game, and now looking to extend his service in administration. Calvin, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Good, good, good. I want to examine with you further something that Skerritt said in the clip we played, and of course he said it on the interview here, because what I got from it, it was instructive to me. He said to us that yourself and Anand Sanasie, he grouped you together, didn't signal you by name, but he was talking about both of you, of course, that you were almost like an opposition political party. Now, I know you spoke to this in some order in the first segment, but what I got from the descriptor is this: a political party, as you very well know, is an organized entity that is seeking after political office with its main aim being to destabilize the government in power, and usually opposition parties adopt a oppose mantra, and that's what they do in practice, and that's what they do in principle. So what I heard Ricky Skerritt saying was that you and Anand Sanasie and perhaps others had organized yourselves to such an extent that whatever he came with, whatever he did, you would just oppose as a way of seeking to undermine his quality leadership and then building your candidacy on that platform. And I just wanted to respond to that, to clarify if it warrants clarification from your perspective.
Yes, and I'm glad you put it that way. And I'm not surprised that Mr. Skerritt will say that, because he is the politician. And that is a good way to deflect. Well, I was hopeful. I have known Ricky Skerritt, and I tell you, a very long time. From about 17 years old, I met him, 17, 18. I was captain of the Barbados on the 19 team, and he was captain of the Combined Islands on the 19 team. They didn't have a very good time against us, but anyway, that's by the way. And we were, I would say that we were, and have been, and are still friends. I have nothing personal against Ricky. I was hopeful that he would have assumed the leadership and operated inclusive and in a proper manner. But I have not seen that. Wherever there have been things that I thought were good for West Indies cricket, I supported. If I saw something that was going wrong and not beneficial, I raised it. I put it in writing as well. And I am not one to, I've been involved in the administration of cricket in Barbados for 23 years. And I saw higher office in the BCA when I thought that it was being run well, or the person who was running it, to my mind, was not the best person. And I would always do that. I love cricket, like he does, I'm sure. And I give to cricket, I have been given to cricket selflessly, spending loads of time, like all of us do. And let me say that in terms of marking me, right? I don't think that Mr. Skerritt really is qualified to do that, or he has never been involved in cricket administration before now. He might have been a manager. Plus, the Barbados Cricket Association has almost 2,000 members. And it is a very, very serious organization when it comes to cricket. And if we talk about cricket first, if there's one place in the world that cricket is first, is in Barbados.
So let me ask you this then, Calvin Hope. Let me ask you this then. So are the issues that you raised about transparency and conflict of interest in the first segment, are they so serious, you believe, as to cause enough of the members who have voting privileges on March 28 to remove Skerritt and Shallow for those reasons that you identified? Are they so serious?
Well, I cited one in the last thing, which is serious enough, in my view, because that brings the organization into disrepute. In my view.
But hold on. But I hear you on your view, and you've been clear on that. But I'm saying, is it that you alone are at the place where you view it so seriously, or is it that the other directors who you're hoping for their support, that they are there with you as well to say, no, this is a no, we can't have Ricky for another term because he's likely to continue this thing? Or are you still having work to do to convince those that this is serious enough for them to change administration? Clarify that for us.
That is not I am not here to make a decision for other people. The CWI has corporate instruments. The Articles of Association governs the organization. If you were to make decisions or pursue acts in the name of the organization, there is a section 1 or 2 that says that it has to be approved by the board. And Mr. Skerritt should know that very well, because some years ago, the late Pat Russo and the late Clavis Joseph removed Mr. Skerritt as the manager of the West Indies team without board approval, and they were forced to resign. They were forced to resign.
Yes.
Section 102.
So you're saying based on precedent, it is clear what should be done. Calvin Hope, we're out of time. We could continue this conversation. I'm borrowing time here. I'm giving you 45 seconds, sir, to tell the people, beyond being a transparent leader, what else is the ticket Sanasie Hope bringing to the table as president and vice president of Cricket West Indies if it happens that way?
Well, we have produced a well thought out, well-researched manifesto and circulated it across the region. And it gives a roadmap, right, for placing confidence, inclusiveness in the organization and in our cricket. No victimization of people, right? Sticking to our word, inclusive with our cricket legends, and serious strategic targeted plans, right, to move our cricket from the doldrums. Do not mind. All kudos to your recent performance of our team, right? But these things must be sustained. The 10-point plan has failed on and off the field. It is gimmickry.
The 10-point plan is a shape with less than 10 points. It's now a triangle, according to Calvin Hope. Thank you very much for your time, sir. All the best in running. And perhaps, well, closer to the time, there's still time to go. We can look at the manifesto, pick out specific things, and ask you to come and elucidate for us.
Well, for instance, we would. There's a question of finance.
Calvin, that's for another interview. That's for another interview. I'm saying that we're going to do that. So you should prepare yourself for another call.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, so we'll talk again. Calvin Hope, Vice Presidential Aspirant, Cricket West Indies. Let's go to the break. UEFA Champions League on the channel on Tuesday and Wednesday. We have a pre-game show, a half-time show, and of course a post-game show comes up in the SportsMax zone on the same day.